Hi, I'm your host, Brittany Caldwell, and I thank you for joining us on Becoming, a show where we encourage, inspire, and motivate women to become all that God has created us to be. And one of the ways that we do this is through sharing our stories of faith, perseverance, setbacks, and victories. And today we're going to discuss a very serious topic, one that affects women and men across the world, one where many people suffer in silence. Today we're going to talk about domestic violence. Our guest on the show today has a firsthand experience with domestic violence, and I can't wait for you to hear her story. Please welcome Alva Hailey.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for sharing with us a topic that is so important and is very near and dear to your heart.
Yes.
So I first want to start off by just asking you, why is it so important for you to bring awareness to domestic violence?
Well, it's just a passion of mine, and simply because I experienced it, and I've been there, done that, felt stuck, felt hopeless, felt like I had absolutely nowhere to go. And I just like to let everyone know that there is hope on the other side of the pain. They don't have to stay stuck. Mm-hmm. They don't have to stay trapped or whatever, hopeless. Mm-hmm. There is help out there. Right. And we have to promote the awareness to break the silence. We have to break the silence against domestic violence. Right. And so it's my passion. And if I can help anyone, just one person, to know who they are and whose they are and start to believe in themselves, we become unstoppable.
So,
yes.
So true.
Yes.
So true. And so you said you have experience with it. Could you give us a picture of what it was like in your marriage, what that was like for you?
Well, domestic violence it never starts out as being hit. It starts out very subtle. It started with, he would get angry, and I would try and calm him down, and after a while it started to be my fault, and I had absolutely nothing to do with it. And then he started to, it was blaming or guilting me. And before long, I started to believe I was actually causing him to be upset. I started doubting myself and questioning myself. And I started walking on eggshells, like, I don't want to do anything to make him upset, and so it starts out subtle with me. Typically it starts out very subtle. And then it would go into, blaming. You see what you made me do. You always do this. You can't do this, and so it eats away at your self-esteem, and it breaks you down. So that's how it started. Okay. And we as mothers, we think we as women, not mothers, but we think we can fix people, and we can't. We can't fix anyone but ourselves. We think we can change people. We think if we do this or we do that, they will change, and we end up getting stuck into a situation that we're trapped in. We are feeling devalued. So with my situation, it started that way, and after a while, it started with a slap here or a hit there, and then the beating started. So I can just remember, at one point in time, just living in survival mode, feeling hopeless, feeling like I had absolutely nowhere to go, no one to turn to. And unfortunately, I did not tell anybody. And back in my day, that was back in the 70s and the 80s, we didn't know anything about domestic violence. Right. We didn't know. We called it somebody fighting or someone getting jumped on. It wasn't, domestic violence.
Gotcha.
So I didn't tell anyone in fear of being judged.
Okay.
And I think we as people, even today, when I talk to my friends about it, they were so quick to say what they would not do. Okay. They were so quick to say, this will never happen to me.
Right.
And
I wouldn't put up with this.
Yeah, I
wouldn't
wouldn't
put up with that.
And they're quick to say that. Yeah. And a lot of times if someone has courage enough to open up to you, that's not what you need to say, because you shut them down.
Right.
We're so quick to say that. And so what we need to do is learn how to be there for them. Although we don't understand, although we've never gone through it, never say what you would not do.
Right.
We're quick to insert ourselves into someone else's situation.
So that's so true.
Yeah. So, but with me, so I put up with it. Okay. I remember There are so many instances. I remember I was going in for a job interview, and he would, his thing was he didn't like to see me shine. So I allowed my light to, it was dim for so long because trying to satisfy him. So he didn't want to see me shine. So I had an interview, and that particular weekend prior to the interview, he got upset, and it didn't take anything to make him upset. And you could always tell he would go, pacing back and forth and, accusing you of something, and you can tell what was coming next. But his aim was to hit me in my face. He wanted to make sure there was some type evidence. And so I had a black eye. I went on my interview with the black eye, and the whole interview was talking about, well, why do you have a black eye? And of course we find every kind of excuse in the world. I ran into a cabinet, I did this and I did that, and I found myself making excuses all the time. I remember one instance when I called the police, and they came out, and it was his the guy had his childhood friend was a police officer, and so he talked to me, and he said, well, let me go talk to him, and he went out and he talked to him, and he came back and he said, he's okay, you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Well, he was okay for the rest of that day, but it didn't take long. And so I was trapped in my mentality. My mind was telling me, you can't make it without him. And he was drugging, and he was drinking alcohol. He would get paid on a Friday and be dead broke on a Saturday. I didn't see him on that Friday because he didn't come. But in my mind, I was thinking, there's no way I can make it. I have these children. I can't make it without him. And I was doing everything myself anyway. So it's just sometimes when we get stuck in a situation, that low self-esteem, our mind will tell us that we're not enough. We're not enough. You can't do that. Who's gonna, you're not pretty enough. You're not smart enough. You'll never make it. And so
that's what caused you to stay in it.
Yes.
It's because you didn't think you were enough without him.
Yes. Yes. And I can't make it, and I was paying every single bill. And then it got to the place where, and one of the things is isolation. They try to keep you isolated. And so he tried to keep me away from my friends. I was working part-time as well as full-time. I was sleeping with the doctors at the part-time job. If I wanted to go to work,
that's what he would say.
You want to go to work because you're sleeping with the doctors. If I had a girlfriend, and we called them friend girls back in that day. If I had a girlfriend, oh, that's your girlfriend because you're sleeping with her. I was sleeping with everything but the dog. And that's what they do. They try to guilt you into, or just try to isolate you. So that was a lot of my story. And so. I was in this situation. One of the things a lot of people will say, I'm in it for my children. But when your children witness that, that's not a good thing.
So let's talk about that. How was it, the impact on your children?
The impact was, they would get really nervous. And here's the thing, like, I wasn't telling anybody, but they were telling my mom. They would go and tell my mom what was happening. And, I was trying to keep it a secret, and I would keep it just to me, and I would go around her and try to act happy. So I had this beautiful mask that I wore forever, but I was so broken and beat down inside, and I took it for as long as I could, and I started dreaming of ways that I could kill him. And when you start doing that, it's time to go.
Just any way you could get out. You were thinking of.
Let me get him. I mean, because the beatings would just come from nowhere. One Christmas Eve, he went out and didn't come in early enough, and it was like midnight. Then I started putting the Christmas toys together. We had a bicycle. I put the bicycle together, and Lord have mercy, the handlebars fell off the next morning. But anyway, putting the stuff together, put the train track together. He came in and he saw all this stuff, and he just went into a rage. He threw everything up against the wall. It was just horrible. So he had a whole lot of hurt and pain, hurt people. And so he witnessed a lot of stuff. And with me trying to thinking I could help him, it was killing me.
It was killing you.
It was killing me.
So let me ask you this question. Let's backtrack a little bit. And when you all were dating, did you see red flags then? Was it totally different from dating and marriage? What was it like for you when you were dating?
So the red flags, it was no physical abuse. No physical abuse. It was just the emotional abuse, that blame, that humiliation, and that's why I want to tell you about the different types. A lot of people will go, well, he's never hit me.
Right.
But they put up with so many others.
Right.
So there is a psychological abuse, and that is instilling or attempting to instill fear.
Okay.
That's that intimidation. That's that threatening, that stalking, that isolation that happens so very often.
Right.
They'll try to keep you from your family, your friends, from work, and then there's that emotional abuse, and that is, to me, one of the worst. All of it is bad,
right?
But that emotional, when they can get into that self-worth and make you feel like you're worth nothing, and that's that belittling, that's that name calling, and that constant put downs, and that criticizing, and that humiliation. They love to humiliate you, and that will start out at home, and then it gets so good to them, they'll do it in public. Yeah.
Wow.
It's just...
So you experienced all of that.
Yes.
Financial, but and when you were dating, it wasn't the physical, but it was the other types of abuse. And I think you're right. A lot of times women will think, well, because it's not physical, then definitely I can change those areas. I can work on those areas.
Yes.
But you are an example of how, but then in marriage, the physical aspect of it did show itself.
Horrendously.
And so we can't ignore or, lessen the other forms of abuse.
No.
Just because it's not physical abuse.
No, never ignore it. And then there's financial, they call it economical. And that's you're withholding, that's making the person totally dependent on you. So and then there's also sexual.
Right.
And the sexual is pretty bad too. That's just talking really bad about your sexual performance. That's guilting you into doing sexual things that you don't want to do. So there are all different types of abuse.
And I think that you said, I know you mentioned in your generation, domestic violence wasn't talked about. Well, I feel like for my generation, other types of abuse are not heightened.
Yes.
We just look at physical abuse.
Right.
And no one is talking about sexual abuse.
Right.
No one is talking about, emotional abuse.
Right.
Or this person
psychological
abuse. Like, we're not really talking about that. And so we just say, he's just that way or whatever. And that's okay. Or I can change him, or that's not that big of a deal. And it's like, no, the way he treats you in public or private is so important. You can't overlook those things.
No, you should never overlook that. And it's so amazing that you say that, because like you said, a lot of times we think we can fix people and we can't. And here's what my prayer is the churches don't deal with it at all.
Okay.
Most churches don't. When we look out, and if we're standing up and looking at the congregation, 1 out of every 4 women experience domestic violence. When you look out in the church, how many women faces do you see? So they're not dealing with it. And that's, and for a long time, I sat with this mask on.
In church.
And
I was going to ask you, did you ever seek counseling from your leadership in church, or even outside of church? Did you seek counseling or therapy, or try to do that together? Did you do that?
I did not.
Because of the fear? Because of why? Why did you not?
Because I didn't think it was available back then. So that was way back in the 70s and 80s. During that time, I lost a son.
Okay.
And so my son drowned, and he really, the husband, he really started drugging. I mean, just really getting, he really did. And the abuse got really bad. So I found myself being in survival mode.
Okay.
I didn't have time to grieve. I had to be there for the other kids.
Right.
So I think the only way I got out was for the goodness of I have to give God all the glory. Had to be the Lord.
So what was your relationship with God during this time?
So it's amazing that you asked me that, because I grew up, when I was growing up, I was in church. I belonged to the house of prayer, so I was in church all the time. And so when I got old enough, I was like, okay, no more church. So I put it on hold. But see, the good thing is that God never left me.
Right.
I put him on hold, to go off and do my thing. And I have learned a lot about, putting him first, and not not going in the direction that I feel like I need to go. So during that whole situation, I didn't have a relationship.
Okay.
And here's the funny thing. I was shipping my kids off. They would go to church on the church bus.
Okay.
And so I was sending my kids off to church, and I wasn't going.
Okay.
I would go to the laundromat. I would get things done.
You need to get done.
Yes, get things done. So, but in the midst of that, he never left me. And so after after we separated, when we first separated, I hopped on the bus to go with my daughter,
Okay.
to go to church with her.
Okay.
And that's when I discovered, this is so amazing. He never left me.
Wow.
He never left me. He's been here all the time. And so I got myself involved in church, and that's when it's just so amazing. But when I got myself in church and found out about this Jesus person and all that he had for me, and when I started studying, getting into it, studying it more, and getting more into church and getting more into Bible study, it was just so amazing. And when I turned my life over to him, oh my gosh, eyes haven't seen, ears haven't. So I know that I'm a nobody without him, absolutely nobody. And so with God, all things are possible. And I just thank him that his son died for me.
Right.
And that, and in the midst of me learning about Jesus, he resurrected my dreams.
Right.
So every dream, every desire that was stirring inside of me when I was young has been refined, defined, and revived. And it's all, and I give God all the glory.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I know, that you can't be unequally yoked, but I'm going to say we weren't yoked at all. So but you can't be unequally yoked. If you love the Lord and you meet someone that's not into the Lord, you need to run real fast. Yeah.
So what is your relationship with God now at this moment?
Oh, wow. I know that I can't do absolutely anything without God. My devotional time, my prayer time, I depend on him. It's just unbelievable. Yeah. And, even though I don't get everything answered, all my prayers are not answered, I know that with him, all things are possible,
right,
according to his will, not according to my will. And that was one of the hardest things I had to learn. It's not all about me.
Right.
It's about giving him the glory.
Right.
And so that's one of my prayers, Lord, if I can share my story, not to get pity, not for anyone to feel sorry for me, but to share my story, to promote awareness, and to let them know the goodness of you, just to give him all the glory. Because if it were not for him, I would not be where I am today.
Right. Amen.
And when I did get out,
Yes.
I didn't feel like I was worth anything.
Okay.
So one of the things about healing,
Okay.
Once you get out, it's like, oh, I'm set free. You got to heal. And then, so in order to heal, you have to reveal to be real. So you have to do that. And a lot of times, if you're not able to go get some type,
right,
counseling or a coach,
right,
you can get yourself around winners, people that support you, people that encourage you, people that don't judge you, and a lot of times what we do, we listen, and as we're listening, we're formulating an answer. So
Yes.
we're not actively listening, right?
Right.
And so we need to get around people that can actively listen. And we don't always have to, sometimes we don't need an answer.
Right.
We just need for you to listen.
Right.
Because most of the time we have the answer already.
Yeah.
We talk it out. We talk it to, we can
Right.
get the answer already. So
that's a very good point about how sometimes people just want someone to listen to. So I know that you said you didn't know that you had the resources then, and then also with friendships, you didn't necessarily go to your friends because you felt that they were judging you, or you felt why didn't you go?
I felt ashamed. So I can't put it all on my friends. I felt ashamed.
Okay.
I'm in this situation, and I felt like a lot of it was my fault. None of it is ever the victim's fault. There's never ever a reason to be abused.
Nope.
Never blame yourself. Yeah.
Right.
So a lot of it, I felt it was my
shame.
fault. Yeah. And I'm not going to tell them because yeah.
So I think that a lot of times on the opposite end, friends are afraid to speak up to their friends when they see that they're in a bad relationship, because they feel that they are going to be the one that's shoved away. And so they think, well, I'm just not going to say anything because I don't want to just not be their friend. I don't want to be pushed away. What advice would you give someone who sees their friend in a abusive relationship, financially, emotionally, just in a bad relationship? What advice would you give to that friend?
One of the things I think I would say, are you okay? I'm a little concerned about you. I just want to make sure you're okay. And, and one of the things we have to do is whatever they decide, we have to support them. I will let them know that there are resources available. I'm not sure what's happening. I'm not sure what's going on within your household, but I'm concerned and I'm here if you need me. And there are also resources I can, that's available that I can give you. Yeah, but never say, girl, there's no way. Yeah, there's no way I would take that. What's wrong with you? Yes.
Right.
Please don't judge them. Please don't. Just be there. And a lot of times people will go, well, I just don't understand it because I've never experienced it. You don't have to understand it to show empathy. And I love this. I was, this manager of mine used to say, before you speak, you think. And think was an acronym. And he said, so before you say anything, you think and ask yourself, is what I'm about to say true? Is it helpful? Does it inspire them? Is it necessary? And most of all, is it kind? And if it's not, keep your mouth closed. Yeah. So let's think. Think before you. And I would love to say to a victim, when we start talking to ourselves, when that inner voice starts telling us that negative, that stinking thinking, as Joyce Myers would call it, start thinking. Ask yourself the same thing. Is what I'm saying to myself true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And most of all, is it kind? Because everything we say to ourselves, we hear. Yeah.
So you mentioned to me before that there were a couple of things that helped you get out of that situation. What were those things that helped you get out?
Okay, so I think the biggest thing that helped me get out is I told you that I had to start thinking about ways that, how can I permanently get him out of here? And one particular time there was a huge blowout, huge blowout. And I had gotten sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was sick and tired of being beaten. I was sick and tired of, just being the head of the household, and like I said, my kids, they would tell my mom, and so she would tell them, I'm not going to say anything, but the next time it happens, call me.
Okay.
So it happened, and it was just huge. It was a horrible situation, and they called her, and she came over. Well, she came over, and she had a weapon. And at that point in time, I said, it's time for me to go. I can't allow anyone else to stand in for me and get in trouble. So we called the police, and we went and took the necessary actions to get him out. And I never looked back. I never looked back. Once again, I was in survival mode, did not know how I was going to make it. And I tell you, God opened up so many doors for me. So very many doors for me. One of the things that helped me a lot was when I was working once again behind this mask and didn't believe that I could do anything, and I had a pretty good job, and someone invited me to an organization called the American Business Women's Association, a meeting. I went to the meeting, and I was just blown away by all these women, these professional women who were just supporting and encouraging and acknowledging each other, giving them accolades. And I was intrigued. I was like, I've never seen anything like this. And so I went back again and again and again. And like 6 months later, I joined. And once again, I never did anything because I didn't think I was worthy of being a part of those ladies, but I love what I saw. And so at the end of that fiscal year, the president approached me and asked me if I would chair a committee. And I'm looking around like, who? And she said, you, and everything in me told me no. And I said no. And she said, well, you know what, just think about it, and let's talk a couple of weeks later. And she called me up, and she listened to every reason in the world that I could not do it. When we're suffering with low self-esteem, we can tell you every reason we can't do something versus why we can. And so she listened, and she said, I'll never set you up for failure. Just give it a try. And I did. And at that point in time, I stepped one foot up out of that box that had me trapped in. It's called the comfort zone, you know, and I tell you, that was the best year. It was pretty hard. We worked together as a team. And at the end of that year, my committee was the committee of the year, and I was a chairperson of the year. And 2 years later, I was president of that organization. And it was just amazing when I got myself around women that were winners, you know, women that would support you and encourage you. And sometimes that's what we need to do.
Right.
We have to get ourselves out of that environment that's keeping us stuck and keeping us trapped.
Yep.
And get ourselves into people that we can learn and grow from.
Right.
And so that helped build my confidence. Now I still struggle. I still, every once in a while, I still struggle with that self-doubt, but I'm not where I used to be.
Amen.
I tell you.
Amen.
Yes.
I think that's so important. That's a testament to how our environments are so important, and who you are around. That goes to just anyone.
Yes.
Who you are around, your friendships, just the groups that you decide to be a part of are so instrumental in helping you grow into the person you're supposed to be.
Yes.
So that is so true and so encouraging.
Yes.
And you also said you found your value in that. You found your value in your self-worth through just being around the right people.
The right people, yes. And you know, it's amazing how God will turn your pain into your gain every time when you put your trust and your faith in Him. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yes, so amazing.
That's so true.
Yes.
So in the midst of all of this is a question that I like to ask all of my guests, but who do you see yourself becoming?
Wow. So, like I said, years ago, before I even met this young man, I had so many dreams and aspirations, and then, you know, he convinced me, you can't do this, you can't do that. So my light was dim. And for many years, it was just so dim. It was almost out that it was so dim. So I'm becoming that ray of light.
Wow.
That ray of light. I am embracing all of my imperfections. I am letting go of all the person that I used to be to become all that God has called me to be.
Yeah.
And see, once you start to not only know who you are, but whose you are, oh my gosh, the doors of unlimited possibilities are there.
You're so
and so
right.
I am so excited and just so waiting, you know. And it's funny because a lot of times I used to think I'm getting so old, but it doesn't matter how old you are. If you are still here, if you're looking at this video, if you are still here, God has a plan and a purpose for your life.
Amen.
Yes.
And that's so true. And I see the light of Christ in you.
Yes.
So that is beautiful.
Thank you.
So if you could say something to encourage someone who's watching who may be in an abusive relationship, or has a friend who is in an abusive relationship, what advice would you give them? What would you say to encourage them?
Okay. So one of the things I like for you to do is know what to look for. A lot of times we don't know what to look for. You know, if you're with your friend and she talks about, or you know your friend has a person that is extremely jealous, or they have a controlling behavior, because the bottom line, domestic violence is all about the willful intimidation, assault, or abusive behavior from one intimate partner against another. And it's all about power and control. That's all it's about. So if you see somebody, if you're with somebody and they're constantly checking into their partner, or their partner is constantly texting them, where are you, who are you with, when are you going to be home? That's an issue. Or if you have a friend that is depressed, or always going through anxiety or suicidal, that's also a sign. Or if you so those are some signs. If you know somebody that if you have a girlfriend timeout and every time you turn around he's got to be with her, what's going on here? Why is he? So those are some of the signs. Or if she's talking about he's jealous or possessive, you know, extremely jealous or possessive, those are some signs. And you can just let them know that, you know what, you're not alone.
Right.
You are not alone. Right. And you know what, God has a plan and a purpose. Before we were even born, we were predestined for greatness and fully resourced. So if you're going through that, or if you know someone that's going through it, please know that you're not alone.
Right.
There's some help out there.
Right.
There's some help out there. And it's so funny because I was talking to a girlfriend and she is so cool and collective.
Yeah.
And I was saying, I have been praying and asking God for this and asking God for that. And she listened to me and she said, and I said, he's not answering me. And she, as cool as and collected as she is, she said, so what if he's waiting on you? So never feel like God has left you. He's always there.
Yeah.
Always there. As the scripture says, knock, seek, and ask.
Right.
You know, ask and it shall be given. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be open. And you just can't do it and not do your part. You know, you can't do it and just wait for God to come and open a door. You have to do your part. So know that you are destined for greatness. You were put here for greatness. You know, and don't allow your light to dim for anybody. Tell them to put their sunglasses on. As Lisa Nichols would say, yes, ma'am.
And shine bright.
Yes, ma'am, shine bright. Yes,
So right.
yes.
So I know that you mentioned that there are some resources that people can use for if they need help. So what are those resources?
Yes. There's some amazing resources, and there's a hotline. It is 1-800-799-7233. That is 1-800-799-7233. The website is www.thehotline.org. That is www.thehotline.org.
Okay.
Amazing resources, and they can help you with an exit strategy. They can just listen and, you know, just help you figure out things. They can help you legally, and they can also put you up for housing.
Oh, great.
Great information.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Well, I thank you for that. And again, I thank you for coming on and sharing your story. It is one of just perseverance and one of just pushing through. And I just thank you for that. Thank you for your courage.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I thank you all for watching. And I pray that Alva's story was a blessing to you as much as it was for me. And I look forward to seeing you become all that God has created you to be. Thank you so much for watching.